Judges, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Chairperson, you can take over and call the next debater.
Okay. I shall now invite Ms. Asha as the opposition leader to deliver her speech.
Salutations, I bid to Madam Speaker, respected Chairperson, honorable adjudicators, cautious timekeeper, my fellow comrades in battle, and last but not least, my opponents. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are assembled here today to discuss today's debate motion, that is, this House believes that the government should provide incentives for the urban poor to migrate to rural areas, and we, the opposition, beg to differ. Before I get on with my points, I would like to give our definition of the motion today. Government means a group of people who officially controls the country. Incentives is a thing that motivates or encourages someone to do something. Urban poor refers to the set of economic and social difficulties that are found in industrialized cities and that are the result of a combination of processes such as the establishment of comfortable living standards, the increase of individualism, processes of social fragmentation, and a dualization of labor. Migration of a person means to move to a new area or country in order to find work or better living conditions. Rural areas is an area of land outside of the densely populated urban areas in a town or city where the primary industry is agriculture, and most people live or work on farms or ranches. Therefore, we, the opposition team, define the motion today as a group of people with the authority should not supply money as a thing to motivate the society with economic and social difficulties found in industrialized cities for them to move to the land outside their own. Today, as the first speaker of the opposition team, I will define and specify our stand and the roles of the members from my team, as well as to rebut the points given by my first speaker of the government. Then I will introduce my arguments to show you why our motion today must be agreed upon by us. Next, our second speaker will redefine the definition and rebut the first speaker from the opposition. Then she will also introduce more equally vital arguments to further support our reasons on why we disagree to the motion. Allow me to start rebutting all the misguided and shallow points given by the government. The first speaker from the opposition team mentioned that that mental health would be better because the cost of living would decrease. But how would that help if the job opportunities are less than what the ones in the city? Moving on to my first argument, it makes the people Moving on to my first argument, according to this motion, this House believes that the government should provide incentives for the urban poor to migrate to rural areas. And if this happens, it makes the people demand more and more incentives for all types of poor communities, making the government lose a lot of money. My second speaker will tell more about this in her points. My second point is spoon feeding is a negative culture that creates lazy societies that is unwilling to be successful. For example, Brim was given with good intention, but is not beneficial to the long run. They might alleviate the suffering for that particular moment, but it does nothing to help people's economic stability. Plus, when money is given, the value will change drastically. 500 ringgit might be enough now, but if the same amount is given in the next 5 years, it won't do much. So by spoon feeding money as an incentive for them to move out, they not only create dependency, but also does not serve any beneficial or solid outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I have given a reasonable rationale for the proposal that innovation is that the government should not provide incentives for the urban poor to migrate to rural areas. With that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Ms. Asha.
The time taken for the first speaker from the opposition is 5 minutes and 32 seconds.
Judges, are you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
ready.
Yes, ready.
Okay, Ms. Chairperson, you can call the next debater.
I now call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Suvarna Maya Pravin, to deliver her speech.
Good morning, everybody. Am I audible? Greetings I wish to the judges and members of the floor once again. As the second speaker of the government, I shall be rebutting the points introduced by the opposition. I shall be presenting my own points as to why we support the motion, and I shall be reinforcing our case line as the government, which is that we believe that it's a beneficial investment made by the government, as providing incentives to the urban poor to migrate to rural areas can benefit the urban poor, as well as develop both urban cities and rural areas simultaneously, which will in turn improve the country's economy. In answer to the POI given to my first speaker, they said that by moving the urban poor to the rural areas, it will keep them poor. But that is simply not true. As my first speaker has defined, incentives can come in the form of both money and job opportunities. These job opportunities, incomes would be more suited to the cost of living in rural areas, which is extremely low. Since the first speaker didn't challenge our definition, I assume that you agree with our definitions. The first speaker has also brought up that job opportunities would be less in rural areas, which I disagree with. Our incentives would provide job opportunities to the urban poor who decided to migrate to rural areas.
POI, please.
Accepted.
What type of job opportunities that you will provide?
Agricultural job opportunities, farming, infrastructure in factories such as oil palm factories. Moving on. The first speaker also brought up that poor communities would demand more incentives. In my opinion, the poor communities deserve to demand for more communities. They are working 9 to 7. They are working every day so hard, and they are only being paid below minimum wage. They deserve to demand what is expected from the government.
POI, please.
Accepted.
Do you have proof that these poor people deserve this thing because they are helping so much for the government? Do you have proof or statistics or facts?
I did not say that they were helping the government at all. I said that even though they work 24 hours a day, they are still paid below average for someone who just sits at a desk, not exerting any work, and they get paid above average pay. So the first speaker also said that it promotes lazy societies. The urban poor are working 9 to 5 jobs. They may be even taking multiple jobs just to keep their family well fed. Don't you think they deserve a better life? Moving on to my first point. By providing incentives to the urban poor to migrate to rural areas, we hope to better their lifestyle and remove what heavy burdens lie on their shoulders. We hope to better their lifestyle and provide reparations for all their hardships. The urban poor do not exactly have the dream life now, do they? The never-ending struggle to go through to make ends meet every day with no pause to enjoy life. Don't you think we should be offering a helping hand to the citizens who need it? By giving them incentives to migrate to rural areas, we are not only encouraging them to take the chance to live a better life, but helping them in their financial situation as well. We intend to change their lives by providing incentives for the betterment of their families, of their and their families' future. There is less stress, less crime, cleaner air, and cheaper living conditions. All these factors are good reasons as to why the urban poor should be given incentives to migrate to rural areas. Urban dwellers know the sound of the light and the sound and light of the city never stop. The quiet of the country offers a deeper satisfaction in life. It offers a slower pace of living. Rural living can offer a less stressful life to the urban poor compared to that in urban areas. Other than that, the crime rates are also extremely low in rural areas. As the government, isn't it our job to offer the best lives for our citizens as we can offer? Don't you think that after the hardships in their life, they deserve to be given the choice of living a better life? In urban areas, the urban poor live at the bottom of the food chain. The discrimination they have to put up with only being victims of the hierarchy is not something they should tolerate just because they don't earn as much as the next person. It is in our best interest to ensure the quality of the living situations of our citizens. Not only is it in our best interest, but it's also our responsibility. I'd like to say that we are not forcing anyone. We are simply offering them an alternative, another option, a better option. As the government, we are here to help them after they have been subjected to the suffering of being labeled as the urban poor. This brings me to my second point. If the opposition can't think of doing anything without receiving anything in return, then I'd like to say you're in luck. We agree with the motion because providing incentives to the urban poor will also help the economy and the development of the country. When the urban poor migrate to rural areas, development is unavoidable. Better roads, public facilities, and infrastructure. This will help develop the rural area for the betterment of the people who live there and for the economy. Take Mangatal, for example. Once the government gave them incentives such as land, to the people who live there, Mangatal is now a successful, bustling town, which compared to what it was before is a much better improvement. If the government had not given them incentives such as land, the development in Mangatal would not be nearly at the stage it is now. Rural livelihoods are enhanced through effective participation of rural people and rural communities in the management of their own social and economic objectives by empowering people in rural areas. The more people live in rural areas, the faster the development of the area will take place. There's also considerable potential for rural job creation, not only
Please.
accepted.
Do you have proof between the correlation of amount of people in a certain area and the rate of growth of infrastructure in the area?
Because of the low population, thank you for that POI for proving my point. Because of the low population in rural areas, the government doesn't help them at all because they're like, oh, there's so little people there. Why should we help them? So by moving urban poor to rural areas, we're killing two birds with one stone. Moving on. There's also job creation in farming, agro-processing, and the rural industry. Agricultural jobs in rural areas facilitate agricultural growth, which can in turn raise rural incomes, promote higher consumption, and lead to significant economy-wide multiplier effects. To add to that, once the urban poor migrate, we can also further develop urban areas by improving and increasing public facilities. It will cause the rate of further development in the urban areas to increase significantly, which results in the development of both areas, rural and urban. As the government, wouldn't you want to kill two birds with one stone? Helping the urban poor while building the economy is the smarter, more advantageous move here.
Information, please.
This just goes to show, denied, it is already past your 1 minute. This just goes to show why the urban poor should be given incentives to migrate to rural areas to kickstart a chain reaction that will lead to the betterment of the economy and national growth. With that, I would like to say it is in our best interest to provide incentives to the urban poor to migrate to rural areas because it can help in the development of the rural and urban areas and help in economic growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Subhana.
The time taken for the second speaker from the government side is 8 minutes and 16 seconds.
Judges, are you all ready?
Yes.
Yes, ready.
Okay, Ms. Chairperson, you can take over.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to listen to the second opposition speaker, Ms. Ezra Rainier, to present.
Madam Speaker, honorable adjudicators, precise timekeeper, members of the opposition, members of the government team, and members of the floor. Good morning, I bid to you all. I, as the second opposition speaker, will be bringing our next equally important argument into the light and open your eyes to the truth and convince you to stand with us today. Again, let me reaffirm our stand. The group of people with the authority should not supply money as the thing to motivate the society with economic and social difficulties found in industrialized cities for them to move to the land outside their own. Before I continue with my arguments, let me first rebut the first and second speaker from the government team. Ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker from the government team stated that providing incentives will give motivation for the urban poor, but doesn't mean that this will make them comfortable with getting help by government. This will make them develop a mindset that help will always come and this is definitely not a thriving environment. She also gave an example of South Korea. But you do realize different countries has different types of incentives that they want to give and different amount of incentives. So if South Korea is benefiting from this providing incentive, doesn't mean all the other countries will benefit this. So therefore, your example is very, very weak.
Wait,
The
ma'am.
first speaker accepted.
We have mentioned in our mechanism that there is no way for the people to take advantage of the incentives given. So please clarify.
I will answer that later on in my speech, so please do listen. The first speaker also stated that the mental health of the urban people will be better. As my first speaker already addressed this issue, job opportunities in rural areas are lower than job opportunities in urban areas. Yes, you say the government can provide incentives, giving job opportunities and all that. But don't you think giving incentives can only be to a certain extent? After giving the job opportunities, yes, the other people, the urban people have to survive by themselves. Next, I will be rebutting the second speaker. She stated, first, I would like to address something that she said. She said that the urban poor people deserve this. And she said that urban poor people just sit at the desk. How can you assume this? You are just guessing,
Point
and
of
that is
information, please.
completely offensive. Accepted.
I did not say that the urban poor people sit at their desks. It is the urban rich who sit at their desks and do not exert physical activities while the urban poor are spending a lot of their time working. Please clarify.
Okay, sure. Thank you for explaining. I will now continue to my arguments because I am running out of time. We will resume by introducing our arguments based on the definitions given by our first speaker. With the development of the world moving at such fast pace, the country cannot afford to be left behind. Many people, especially the young generation, are moving into the urban areas for job prospects. According to www.bloomberg.com, young people favor living in urban areas more than previous generations did at the same stages in life. They are no longer interested in, nor are they good at, living the simple life of farming, running and working in small family-owned tuck shops, etc. Therefore, the government is better advised to channel their assistance or fundings into supporting the infrastructure of the urban areas. There is no point in spending unnecessary time and costs on plans that will not yield profits and are not beneficial to the growth of the country. I have already accepted 2 points of information. I will not be accepting others. Thank you. The areas that government can consider to constantly improve in are as follows. Investments should be made into the public transportation system so that more areas could be accessed and the quality of transformation improved. Example, more routes for monorails, LRTs could be constructed and the conditions of such transportation can be upgraded for the comfort of travelers. The improvement of infrastructure can help increase job opportunities for the urban poor. Therefore, the urban poor would not have to migrate and adapt to the rural areas. Education is another area where the government can channel their funding. With the global growth of the education system, it is imperative that the nation isn't left behind. Investments can be made in the training of both teachers and students, and this can be carried out in many ways. One example being government funding for foreign exchange student and teachers programs. They should also invest in subsidizing desktops or laptops for students. A better and stronger internet accessibility is another area that the government should look into to propel the nation into technological advances that will profit young minds growing up in this modern generation. The government can also invest in providing for and promoting multi-skills courses to the urban poor people. According to www.government.uk, the government of UK offers free courses from National Skills Fund. The courses that are offered are accounting and finance, agriculture, etc. This would be beneficial as it will enable one to have more than one job. For those already having a main job, multi-skilling can help generate a lucrative side income. With the high standard of living, more and more people are turning to second jobs to make extra money on the sides. Having multi-skills is also most helpful in case one is laid off from the main job. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that I have done my duties as the second speaker by demolishing the first speaker and the second speaker from the opposing team and convince the members of the floor to stand with us today by introducing our strong arguments. Once again, let me reaffirm our stand today. The government should not provide incentives for urban poor to migrate to rural areas. With that, I take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ezra.
The time taken for the second speaker from the opposition side is 7 minutes and 4 seconds.
Judges, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Chairperson, you can take over.
I shall now call upon the third minister from the government, Ms. Anushka, to rebut.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I start attacking their baseless case, let me ask you a simple question. Would you rather settle for a simple Sunday or a Sunday with a cherry on top? Before I forget, ladies and gentlemen, salutations I bid to members of the floor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to clarify that, first of all, side opposition has not mentioned their stand whatsoever and did not provide any counter mechanisms on how to improve the living conditions of the urban poor, which is the main focus of today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. And I will get into that further later. Now, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we assume that they are very comfortable with the status quo, which is that the urban poor are suffering with the high cost of living in urban areas. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a very key, with something that one of the speakers mentioned, which is that the mental health. She attacked my first speaker that mentioned that the mental health of the urban poor will be better because of the low cost of living, and she started mentioning about less job opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, can we just think about the common sense here? It's completely baffling that they think that there's no job opportunities in rural areas, ladies and gentlemen. There's less competition and therefore much more job opportunities, and everyone can have a chance. And ladies and gentlemen,
POI,
no
please.
incentives accepted.
We didn't say no job opportunities. We say less job opportunities. Can you clarify that?
Ladies and gentlemen, opposition has not been listening to a word I've said, ladies and gentlemen. They mentioned that there's less job opportunities, but we are ensuring, ladies and gentlemen, that there are in fact many opportunities, and they further emphasize that there will be no job opportunities whatsoever. Now let's talk about their second motion, their second point, which is that people will demand more money. Ladies and gentlemen, this is completely obliterated by our mechanism, because through our mechanism, people are not allowed to take advantage of the system, which is that we will document and assess people's backgrounds to make sure that they will not take advantage of the incentives. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, their argument is completely baseless, accepted.
Perhaps maybe have you ever considered that maybe you are the one who's confused? You are saying by providing them with this incentive, they will expect more incentives from the government in the future, which will in turn make them be lazier and more demanding.
Ladies and gentlemen, side opposition again has not been listening to a word I said. There is no way of taking advantage of the system, and the people should well know that through our mechanism, there is no way of taking advantage of it, ladies and gentlemen. Our mechanism has completely explained why people are not allowed to take advantage of the system and why people shouldn't expect more. Ladies and gentlemen, the incentives are used as crutches for people to improve their living, ladies and gentlemen. They're not using it to completely live for decades and decades of years. Every year, everything is completely supported by the government. We are giving them incentives so that they can start up something and do something on their own. And that is something that side opposition has missed completely throughout the 16 minutes of my first and second speakers' argument. Let's talk about their point of information, ladies and gentlemen. One of the speakers mentioned that moving a bunch of asking us to prove that moving a bunch of people to rural areas will improve them. And they said that by moving a bunch of people to rural areas, it will not improve their quality of living. Ladies and gentlemen, this is common sense. With incentives, ladies and gentlemen, we are encouraging them to start up businesses, start up small, agricultural things, and having job opportunities and starting up things on their own, ladies and gentlemen. And this will definitely improve their quality of living, and it will definitely result in development, ladies and gentlemen. And that is something side opposition has missed throughout the whole entire debate. Accepted.
How do you expect to send poor people and expect these poor people who could barely survive in cities to develop this land? They are not Elon Musk, they are not Mark Zuckerberg. They do not have the capabilities to develop the rural areas.
For agreeing to our point, Mr. Malai. Now, the reason why they are able to do this is because we have given them incentives. We've given them the motivation to actually start something up. Now, ladies and gentlemen, look at what side opposition has done. They are underestimating the urban poor, ladies and gentlemen. That is exactly why we're giving them incentives. And as mentioned by my first speaker, it will motivate them into starting something of their own. Let's talk about the second speaker. Now, she mentioned that we should invest more towards urban areas. Ladies and gentlemen, this sounds completely and utterly ignorant to say that we should only invest in urban areas. And ladies and gentlemen, it's so not logical, because the more we develop urban areas, the gap in classes will increase, ladies and gentlemen. The urban poor will be even poorer than before. And ladies and gentlemen, it proves to us that it will not increase the quality of living of the urban poor. Ladies and gentlemen, she also mentioned internet advances and whatever sort of development she could come up with. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to point out that it is completely greedy for side opposition to not even allocate a little bit of money to help the urban poor, people who are suffering, our people, because she wants to invest in other things that are not as necessary as the urban poor, ladies and gentlemen. And it is completely ignorant that side opposition believe that we should not even invest a little bit of money that we could to help the people who are struggling, ladies and gentlemen. And she, in fact, agreed with us, saying that the urban poor has to work multiple jobs a day to actually support themselves, ladies and gentlemen. Is this really the life that we encourage for everyone, ladies and gentlemen? She insinuated that it is good for people to overwork themselves for the experience. Ladies and gentlemen, how is this justifiable? Which is exactly why we should move the urban poor to rural areas to make sure that they're able to have jobs, they're able to have a great quality of living, and they won't have to work multiple jobs a day and having to live life only surviving. Now let's talk about what the first speaker said. First of all, let me just point out she did not rebut anything regarding our argument, which proves that she agrees with our stand for today. Now, she mentioned that spoon feeding is a negative culture. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a simple question. How is this spoon feeding? Ladies and gentlemen, we are not spoon feeding here. We are giving them a helping hand. We are giving them, they are using us as a crutch, ladies and gentlemen. We are giving them help so that they are able to start something up on their own. We are not giving them millions and millions of ringgit for them to live throughout their whole life. We are giving them something small so that they can work with it and they're able to build themselves up, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, their whole argument is completely baseless. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me point out again that it is completely greedy for side opposition to think that we are taking up all of the government's money, when in fact we are only taking a little bit of it to actually help people, ladies and gentlemen, to actually help our economy and to help our people in the rural areas as well as the urban areas. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with that, let me reaffirm our team stand on the motion that we believe that the government should provide incentives for the urban poor to migrate to rural areas, because it is a beneficial investment made by the government, as providing incentives to urban poor to migrate to rural areas can benefit the urban poor as well as develop urban cities and rural areas simultaneously. This will then directly improve the country's economy, ladies and gentlemen. We have disproved all of side opposition's points with our own, and every single point they have come up with is completely obliterated by our mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. And if they had listened to our whole debate, they wouldn't have brought up these irrelevant points that had nothing to do with the motion in the first place. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I proudly propose to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anoshka.
The time taken for the third speaker from the opposition is 7 minutes and 42 seconds.
Judges, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Chairperson, you can call the next debater.
Okay. It is now time to listen to the rebuttals of the third opposition speaker, Mr. Malai Ahmad bin Malai Johan.
Salutations, I bid to Madam Speaker, wise and honorable adjudicators, esteemed timekeepers, members of the floor, my comrades in this pursuit for truth, and last but certainly not least, our misleading and confused opponents. This House believes that the government should provide incentives for the urban poor to migrate to rural areas. But we, the opposition team, strongly disagree with this motion at hand. I, as the third speaker, will be rebutting the points that are full of holes, which were given by the government team. First off, the first speaker of the government team, this incentive will incentivize people to these urban poor people to start a new life in these rural areas. Well, let me tell you this: they are still poor. They still don't have the skill to survive. She stated that we should provide them with training. Why should we go with this more costly plan? Why not just provide them with training to live in the cities? Why would we move them to the rural areas where they do not know how to
Point
survive
of
and then teach them
information,
how to
please.
survive there? They are already living in cities. Why not just teach them how to better survive in the cities? Again, this just shows how this plan is very costly, very unnecessary, and do not bring any long-term benefit and do not make any sense. Yes, accepted.
So you only wish to develop the urban areas and leave the rural areas by itself without helping them? Why would you not want to help the urban poor while developing rural areas? Please.
Thank you. I will answer that further down in my third rebuttal. Secondly, another point that was stated by the first speaker of the misleading government team is that it would better the quality of life because it would cost less money to live there. Well, let me tell you, quality of life is not just about money. Just because you can buy things, if there are nothing to buy, then that money is useless. In rural areas, as you know, the infrastructure there is very bad. They rarely some places do not even have running water, do not even have electricity, and quality of life even includes mental health. And when these people move to these rural areas, their mental health will take a hit due to the sudden and due to the sudden change in their living environment.
Wait, sir.
Wait, this will make them more stressed, which in turn will reduce their quality of life. Yes, accepted.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you. Another point which was stated by the second speaker of the government team is that it will relieve the burden from the urban poor and their family. Well, as I have stated, does not relieve any burden from them. If you move them to these rural areas, they will be hit by sudden change. They will be stressed. It will not relieve any burden, maybe even add more burden. And as for their families, as I have already stated, especially for the children, they do not do well with sudden change, with rapid change. These children are still immature yet. They need
Point of
their
information,
friends.
please.
They still have their friends back in cities. This is another reason why this plan is very unnecessary, and very costly. This plan is just unnecessary. Why not just give give them training to teach them how to live in the cities? Why would you have to do all of this unnecessary stuff? Just a huge gimmick. Yes, accepted.
We are not forcing any of the urban poor. If they're so concerned with their friends in their city, then we will not force them to move to rural areas. Please explain.
I'm just explaining how this will not improve their quality of life. How your points are invalid. How moving to these areas have its drawbacks. It isn't a perfect plan. It is a plan which is full of holes and is very costly, which can be
Point of information, please.
rejected. Which and it's solving a problem which can be solved using other more cost efficient plans. And another thing about the government team is that they have very weak evidence. They stated that it will kill two birds with one stone. It will improve the infrastructure of urban areas, rural areas, will improve life quality poor of the poor urban people. Well, based off of your study, yes, it does yes, based off of your short-term study, yes, it does have a small amount of improvement. Yes, indeed. But in the long term, because when we are talking about these costly plans, such a huge amount of money cannot be used on a short-term plan. That's just a huge waste of money based off of a study in China on 30 provinces, which was conducted between 2000 and 2012. In the long term, your solutions will only lead to larger wage gaps, to larger pay gap between rural people and urban people. Now moving on to the points given by the third speaker of the government team. She keeps stating about their mechanism. We were not listening. Well, perhaps she was the one who was not listening. She keeps talking about people cannot take advantage of our mechanism. Well, yes, we weren't even asking about their mechanism. We're just talking about how people will expect more from the government in the future and will cause people to be lazy. And which is very true. Look at Venezuela. They provided too many
Wait, sir.
incentives for their people. Yes, accepted.
Through our mechanism, it is proven that people will not be lazy. In fact, will actually motivate people into starting things on their own, as said by my first speaker. Please clarify.
Wait, I'm trying to explain here why your point won't work. I'm explaining answering your PI with my next point. Just look at Venezuela. It provided too much incentives for the people, which in turn caused their
Point of
people to be
information,
lazy,
please.
rejected. And when they can no longer, and this is the worst part, and when they can no longer provide them with those incentives, the people will be living in, well, worse conditions than before. Ladies and gentlemen, this just goes to show how much holes there are in their plans and in their unnecessary plans. Why would you do all of this when you can just improve the lives of rural people, by just going on with other less costly plans? As the third speaker of the opposition team, I believe I have done my job by rebutting the the points given by the government team. And with that, I shall take my seat.
Thank you, Mr. Malay.
The time taken for the third speaker from the opposition is 7 minutes and 54 seconds.
Ms. Chairperson, you can start the timing for the reply speech.
Okay. Now that we have heard all the three speakers from both teams, we shall take a short break of 3 minutes. During this time, both the government and the opposition teams will prepare the reply speech. The audience is requested to keep quiet during this time. The time of 3 minutes has ended. I shall now invite the second speaker from the opposition, Ms. Ezra, to make her reply speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the House, welcome again to our debate. Let's first look at the opponents at their shaky line of argument. All of their points are completely debatable, and there is not enough facts, research, and statistics that can support their arguments. And I'd like to address the third speaker. She kept on saying we were not listening, but in fact, they were not listening. She stated that my first speaker wasn't rebutting their arguments. She clearly rebutted their point about mental health. You did remember that, right? Or weren't you listening? And I'd like to address also, they kept on stressing, why wouldn't we help the rural areas? We are just being ignorant and all that. But ladies and gentlemen, the motion today focuses on helping urban poor. We are not leaving out rural areas, but we believe that helping the urban poor will simultaneously help them, the entire society, in the future. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say that the opposition team is on the wrong track. We, on the other hand, the government team is on the wrong track. Excuse me. We, on the other hand, have provided you 4 strong arguments to truth, which is it makes the people demand more and more incentives for all types of poor communities, making the government lose a lot of money. And spoon feeding is a negative culture. It creates lazy society that is unwilling to work hard and achieve success. Next, money is better channeled to better causes such as improving education, infrastructure, and public transport. Next, we also said that better training can help them to have better jobs in the city. And again, you said that having better jobs in the city will not help, right? I clearly said, and you weren't listening again, that improval of infrastructure would increase job opportunities for urban poor in urban areas. Therefore, the urban poor would not even have to migrate to rural areas and adapt to rural areas. Ladies and gentlemen, which world would you live in? In the government team's world, where struggling people are too comfortable being spoon-fed by the government, causing them to be irresponsible, or in our world, the opposition, where society are more responsible and not entirely dependent on the government. Thus, they can be able to survive. Now that I have proved the government team wrong, I proudly take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ezra.
The time taken for the reply speech from the opposition side is 3 minutes and 14 seconds.
Judges, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Chairperson, you can continue.
Okay. I shall now call upon the Deputy Prime Minister from the government team, Ms. Suvana, to give her reply speech.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings I bid to the judges and members of the floor once again. Ladies and gentlemen, today as the second speaker, I shall be presenting a reply speech and hope you will make the right decision. My reply speech will convince you and prove to you we have already won this debate. You attacked my third speaker about not listening when there wasn't much to listen to begin with. The opposition has brought up useless points such as it makes the urban poor demand more types of incentives, or spoon feeding is a negative culture when we are only helping those in need, and that by providing incentives, it creates lazy societies that are unwilling to be successful. All these ignorant and heartless arguments, if they can be called that, have been rebutted and proven wrong by both my first speaker and third speaker. The points they have brought up are unconvincing and worthless. They're also not looking at the bigger scheme of things. I would like to say that if the opposition is so confident with their stand, why did their first speaker speak for such a short period, not allowing POIs on our side? Why did their second speaker only accept 2 POIs, knowing that if she were to accept more, we could prove her arguments wrong, which my third speaker managed to do anyway? The plan may not be perfect, as you said, but is a much more effective than your plan, which is simply to not do anything, since they did not provide a mech to support their argument. Our solution has much more advantages and is more efficient than what the opposition is opting for. They say the quality of life in rural areas are crappy, which will stress them out even more. But that is exactly why we are developing it. And killing two birds with one stone is our main aim. They said, why not just let them stay in the urban areas and give them help up there? It will be an inefficient use of money. Since the cost of living is lower in rural areas, the same amount of money can be used to help more people for a longer amount of time compared to when they still lived in urban areas. It will be a more efficient use of resources. Other than that, leaving them in urban cities will just create a vicious cycle. Them, their children, their children's children will all be a part of the cycle and continue to be classified as urban poor. By giving them a chance to move to rural areas, we are giving them an opportunity to get out of the vicious cycle and start a new life. By agreeing with the opposition, the urban poor will remain at their status, unmoving and steadily increasing in population. The urban areas and rural areas will not further develop or develop at all, leaving its citizens to fend for themselves. As the government, it is our aim to further improve our nation, not to allow it to remain stagnant and slowly deteriorate. If we provide incentives to the urban poor to migrate to rural areas, it will encourage them to grab the chance to live a better life. And it can help in the development of both the rural and urban areas and help in economic growth, as our team has proven to you today. It will further develop our country while increasing the living quality of every citizen. It is a win-win situation for everyone. If you were to oppose this motion and say we shouldn't provide incentives to the urban poor to migrate to rural areas, then you are very well damning and forcing citizens to suffer in silence. You would be the very downfall to our society and development of our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, with all the points my teammates and I have provided with you, do you still agree with the opposition who only wishes to help themselves and leave the urban poor to suffer alone? As the government, I would like to reinforce our case line that we believe that it's a beneficial investment made by the government as providing incentives to the urban poor to migrate to rural areas can benefit the urban poor as well as develop both urban cities and rural areas simultaneously, which will improve the country's economy. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Subhana.
The time taken for the reply speech from the government side is 4 minutes and 10 seconds.
clear who won.
So on my
Hi, I'm back. Can we start with the next step of announcing the result, Ms. Chairperson?
Okay. Before the announcement of the result, I would like to invite the Chief Adjudicator to give oral adjudication. In particular, it should outline the key reasons why the winning team won and comment on the significant matters of the debate. The Chief Adjudicator will also announce the winner of the debate and the best debater.
Hi, everyone. Hello once again. Before I announce the result, I will just give some comments, okay, to both the government and the opposition team, so that whoever would be going to the next semi-final, you could prepare better. All right, we will start with the government team. We, the judges, felt that your plan proposed is very genuine because you actually gave us the example of Korea and more to us, which is Menggatal. So the evidence that you gave us is very specific. We can imagine it, we can see it. Also, what we like about the government team is that there is consistency of your arguments. We can see your flow of ideas, means from the first speaker, and then the second speaker reinforce the ideas of the first speaker, and the third speaker sum it all up very nicely. And what we like is that you always go back to your case line. Okay, so that's very good for the opposition team. When you answer the POIs, opposition team, it is not advisable to keep on telling, we will answer that later. Okay, because when you accept a POI, you should just straight away answer it and take it to your advantage. That's what the government team did. Okay, not just keep on saying, I will answer it later. And then one more thing about the opposition team, we felt that you are not convincing enough. You do not, your examples that you give us are very general. For example, the second speaker gave us the UK introduces more free courses. What type of free courses? Can that mechanism be used in Malaysia? Do we offer free courses to the urban poor? Okay, bear that in mind if you try to answer. All right, and one more thing is what we noticed for the opposition is you fail to clarify the government's mechanism. Okay, is your mechanism good? If you say it's not good, so what mechanism would you come up with? Okay, and when you also do not tackle the mechanism proposed by the government. You keep on saying, oh, okay, they will be lazy. Okay, they will keep on depending and demanding more and more incentives. Okay, fine, but you need to give us another mechanism. All right? So with that, I will announce the results. Okay. This house believes that the government should provide incentives for the urban poor to migrate to rural areas is accepted. Congratulations to PPD KK Team 1. The best debater goes to Suvarna Maya from PPD KK Team 1, because we felt that you are very natural, you're able to show us proof, you're able to convince the judges, and we realize also you do not do much reading. You have that lawyer look, that if we were to have a problem, you can convince us, don't worry, I can win your case for you. Okay, so congratulations to PPD KK once again, and congratulations to PPD Papar also. You did very well. Learn what the comments we gave, so maybe next year you would do better. All right, see you all again. Thank you so much. Bye. So, Ms. Chairperson, you can take over now.
Okay. With that, the House of Parliament is adjourned.